Hey there. So today I thought I'd take a look at the Lobo Convention Special from DC Comics back in 1993. So this book came out at the sort of height of the 90s comic boom. The speculator market was kind of running wild back then. So this book takes a look at parroting that and sort of, conventions at the time and just sort of how the comic industry was sort of running wild back then. So here on the cover we've got Lobo in sort of a mashup of different superhero costumes. There's a lot of Cable going on here in the design and some Superman and parodying some other characters here. And again, around Lobo here we've got parodies of sort of classic comic book covers with Lobo worked into the cover there. Here we have the want list. This is sort of like the credits of the issue. So we have Keith Giffen and Alan Grant on writing, and then Kevin O'Neill drawing. And it says down here for Crimes Against Comics. Kind of a bummer now to realize that Grant and O'Neill aren't with us anymore. I kind of hope to get this book signed by everybody at a convention someday, but that, never happened. So we're going to start off here. So the story starts with Lobo taking a look at the recent Death of Superman comic from '92 and laughing so hard that he ends up destroying his copy of the book. And so he decides he needs to get a new one. And after trying a comic shop and a publisher, he decides he has to head out to the San Diego Comic Convention to get a new copy. So again, right off, we have Kevin O'Neill's art here. A lot of Easter eggs, a lot of detail kind of all over the place. You really don't want to glance over his artwork. You really want to take a look at, every little thing, and a lot of just sort of hidden jokes throughout, things written everywhere. We have him blasting off into space here, and we have a character very similar to the Silver Surfer here, kind of being blown away by him, kind of rushed to the side. But then we have him arriving at the San Diego Comic Convention, and just the sort of groups of people. Now, again, San Diego's gotten even bigger since this, back in the day. But, yeah, a lot of this still kind of carries over. Just a lot of, like, the madness of collectors and the hobby. And, again, just the big sort of boom of the 90s that was going on then. So, yeah, if you read this, really kind of take your time. Check out all the, we've got some references now to Impact Comics, which was an imprint of DC at the time where they worked out a deal with Archie. I'm probably the only one that cares about that imprint anymore. I have like all of the Impact books. But even back then, Lobo says it's he's seen more impact than a dead trout. And the skull he's lifting here says, hey, who discovered Joe Quesada? Because, again, he did some early work at Impact back in the day. And then he's kind of going by the Marvel and DC booths. And someone here that works at the convention thinks that he's Simon Bisley, an artist who was associated with Lobo back then. So yeah, then we've got the Lobo Con Guide to Comic Conventions, and, we have lurid tales from the con here. And, this customer here screaming, "That's my pocket you're hurting, sir." And then sort of looking at con staples of, panels and portfolio reviews. And just sort of how Lobo decides to teach them an anatomy lesson by tearing this one guy apart and clearing out the review. Then there's an award banquet where Lobo is winning all the awards here. And then we've got someone looking at Golden Age pre-Batman Detective Comics here. And so we have the cover to Detective Comics #1 here, and then Lobo spitting on it. And then it cuts to a 911 operator. And then we have the costume parade of an fan and an obese fan in a Lobo costume. Oh, we got a Bloodlines ad here, so that's kind of telling of the time we're talking about here. Then we cut to the Navy stationed outside San Diego, and we have a little Aquaman down here in the water swimming by. And the Navy's about to carry out a operation to shell the convention center, but they pause until they realize it's a comic book convention, and you see the crowd here singing the 60s Batman theme, and the Navy decides to proceed with the shelling. So here we have the convention center being bombed by the Navy. We have a neat little design here for LoboCon 93. That could be a cool patch or something that they could have made back then to kind of tie into this. But yeah, so we have the destruction now at the convention center, and again we've got Superman's cape with sort of a dollar sign through it, floating in the breeze, like on the Superman 75 Death of Superman issue cover. And then when Lobo comes out of the wreckage of the con, he finds the platinum edition of the Death of Superman and is so excited that he shreds it. And then decides who needs comics. And at the end here we have, and the moral of our story, don't waste time with people who tell you to get a life. And then down here we have a plug for Lobo's monthly book that was going to start in November of that year, which went for quite a while. Then again, you know, some ads for what was going on back then. But yeah, just a fun book. Again, a lot of little Easter eggs and things to check out while you're reading it. Really take your time. I mean, it's a funny book. It's easy to just kind of tear through it, but there's a lot of stuff. Like, this is a book you definitely get more out of reading it a second time, maybe a third time. But yeah, just a fun, kind of crazy book, and just, you know, sort of a cautionary tale for how to act at comic conventions. And keep in mind, this is a fun hobby. And, you know, money just kind of really got in the way back in the 90s of a lot of things and led to a lot of crazy stuff, which, again, they're all, you know, satirizing here in this book. But, yeah, a lot of fun. I took a look at this on my Instagram a few weeks ago when I reread this again. And I thought, like, oh, Cartoonist Kayfabe, you know, channel should do a video of this. And now that I'm doing these videos, it's like, well, I could just do a video myself. So here we are. Yeah, this book is available to read on the DC Infinite app, on there, if you have that. I assume it's on Comixology. I'm not using Comixology a lot anymore, but I'm sure it's on there too. Have you read this? Is there anything that you read regularly before convention season starts up? This is something I like to check out every year. And again, it's a fun book, and it is really a time capsule of what was going on back then. And again, if you want to follow me online, I'm at Detective651 on Instagram and Twitter. I have a TeePublic site where I sell shirts I design and different things, and that's tpublic.com/user/Detective651.